Hi everyone, thanks very much to Mortaza and to John Bruno and everyone at the International Ecotourism Society for the opportunity to present today. I'm Declan Hughes, I come from Ireland, and the talk is going to be very brief. It's Ecotourism Turning the Tide. Next please. So I'm a travel addict. I've been to over 100 countries and islands around the world. And my passion is travel, so there's a few snaps there. There's my wife and kids in the top right-hand corner. Next slide, please. Here's a quick 30-second video of flycruise.com. I promise we're not going to sell you anything today. Next slide, please. We're a consortium of travel brands, actually, and we're very into travel. So here we are in Tokad. Tokad is an amazing destination. I've done some research before I flew in, and I couldn't believe it's actually a place where Julius Caesar ushered those famous words, the Latin words, Vini, Vidi, Vici. I came, I saw, I conquered. It's amazing. It's very inspirational. That's a unique selling point as well for Tokad. I think Tokad should promote that a lot more, especially Game of Thrones and movies and series. And also, it's Tokad castles where Vlad Dracul was held and tortured by Turkish Ottomans back in the day. And Vlad Dracul is very famous. He's Count Dracula. The book Count Dracula by Bram Stoker was based on Vlad the Impaler. So again, that's a very unique selling point for Tokad. Next slide, please. And of course, for centuries, Ireland and Turkey have a very unique history and significance. And it's a beautiful relationship we have. The Irish love coming to Turkey. Turkey is world famous for its hospitality, and it's very welcoming. And you know, and I think this goes back, way back, to when a sultan, he sent ships laden with food to Ireland when we had a great famine. He wanted to send a lot of money, but Queen Victoria didn't want the sultan to send as much money as she did, because she would be embarrassed. But instead, the Sultan sent a lot of ships to the Irish people to feed us. And we'll never forget that. So for that, I'd like to thank the Turkish people today for what the Sultan done so many years ago. Next, please. So here I am. I'm from Limerick. It's the gateway city to the Wild Atlantic Way. It's a beautiful historic city. That's the River Shannon, and we have King John's Castle here. And I live literally 10 minutes away. And for years, the city turned its back to the river, but now we've turned towards the river because the river nurtures. You know, there's a lot of development going on in Limerick, but yet we still want to retain the historical significance of our beautiful city. Next, please. And this is what we're doing in Limerick. We've created a 40-kilometre greenway, and the gradient is very easy for all age groups. For the people to just, you know, take in nature, because nature nurtures. There's just so many, you know, we live in the information age now, so much information, the digital age, and people want to just switch off from the information that's available, and they just want to go for walks without their mobile device, and they just take in the sound of nature. Next, please. This is a very famous place in Ireland. It's the capital of Lone County Kerry. It's a spectacular view. I'd highly recommend to anyone that comes to take in not only Limerick but also Kerry. I absolutely love Kerry. Next, please. So here's a video I'm going to play for 60 seconds.
The island of Ireland. We'll admit it's been a tad accept that, fella. So when the time is right, we look forward to having you with us.
And that's the sound we should be listening to. You know, when I went on holidays 2 years ago to Turkey in Club Privy by Rixos in Göcek and Dalaman, I had a wonderful lunch there with the hotel director, and he told me years ago, he said, guests were looking for free Wi-Fi for the internet and their phones. Now the guests are looking for Wi-Fi free zones where there is no internet, there's no people taking selfies, there's no notifications. They just want to listen to the sound of the waves lap, because nature really nurtures. Because the notifications can be very irritating, they can be very, I suppose, stressful sometimes. They go 24/7. So we really do have to switch off and get an IT detox. And that's where the ecotourism comes into play. There's a unique and immense opportunity to take full advantage of that today. Next, please. And again?
The island of Ireland.
We've already played this one.
Willingly.
So, a couple of years back, I was in India, in Rishikesh, in the foothills of the Himalayas, and I attended a conference there with the Pacific Asia Travel Association. And there was a guy, he gave a talk there. He said, planet Earth is an island in space. If you pollute an island here on Earth, we can always move to a cleaner island. Whereas, should we pollute planet Earth, we cannot just move to another planet. And he's right. Unfortunately, with the COVID crisis that came along, we've all got back to using single-use plastics again, which has been horrific for the environment. Everything seems to be wrapped individually, and I think there's no need for that. I really do. I think we shouldn't sanitize ourselves off the face of the planet. Some germs are actually good for our immune system. So there's something more thinking about for hoteliers. And I'd actually save yourself quite a bit of money as well, because a lot of the plastic, single-use plastic packaging is unnecessary. And of course, Earth has lost 50% of its wildlife in the past 40 years. Just think about it. 50% of the wildlife on Earth has been lost. That's astounding. That's just so bad. And we have 3 C's of life: choices, chances, and changes. So we must make a choice to take a chance, or your life will never change. And that's the same principle applies to travel and tourism. Next, please. So here's a man that is a great inspiration of mine. It's Sir David Attenborough. Who here knows David Attenborough, Sir David Attenborough? I really highly recommend you Google this guy on YouTube and find out a little bit more about this man, because he's getting on in life, and when he goes, we're going to be in serious trouble. So he's an encyclopedia of information. He is to what Bill Gates is to computers, he is to nature. So if you can just play the video about the Great Extinction, please.
I've encountered some of the world's most remarkable species of animals. Only now do I realise just how lucky I've been. Many of these wonders seem set to disappear forever.
The UN panel of experts has found that 1 million animal and plant species face extinction.
It is worse than expected. This is happening much faster than we've ever seen before.
Today, we are the asteroid that's causing many, many species to go extinct simultaneously.
The evidence is that unless immediate action is taken, this crisis has grave impacts for us all.
We're not just losing nice things to look at, we're losing critical parts of Earth's system.
And it's threatening our food, our water, our climate.
We are encroaching further and further every day into wildlife habitat, and that drives emerging diseases.
If we carry on like this, we will see more epidemics, as bad as this, and some of them could even be worse.
It's never been more critical for us to understand what is driving this crisis. Scientists have identified the key ways in which we humans are destroying the ecosystems on which we depend.
There are many ways to remove pieces of the puzzle. The most obvious way is to kill something. And we do a lot of that.
We're talking about millions of animals being snatched from the wild, from thousands of species.
We have massive and widespread overfishing.
We're completely destroying the natural balance of fish in the world's oceans.
When I was a kid in the 1960s, there were 3 billion people in the world. And I'm now probably going to see it actually reach, 9 billion in my lifetime, which is pretty startling.
Population growth is much, much higher in the developing world than in the developed.
But it's problematic just to talk about population, because there are two things which are going on. It's population, but it's also consumption.
And in terms of impacts on the planet, what's much more important is the growth in consumption levels. And these are far higher in the developed economies.
While in a country like the United Kingdom, where some very strong laws on how to reduce pollution, we do have to realise we're no longer a major industrial country. Most of the things that we actually use are produced abroad in countries where the laws can be non-existent. So we're simply moving our footprint on destroying nature to another country.
Many people imagine there's this untouched wilderness because they see it on their TV screens. But the reality is, there's really not a lot of wild left out there.
We've converted 75% of the land that is not covered by ice.
3/4 of the terrestrial surface has been changed, a lot of it just to feed one species.
All of the calculations show we're on track for a 3 to 4 degree world, and the more the Earth warms, the worse the problem is.
There are lots of ways that climate change will impact on species. These are no longer predictions, we're seeing it happen.
For those of us who care about the future of our planet, we have to look at our lifestyles and we can't look away from our own behaviours.
40 years ago, people consumed a good deal less in the United Kingdom. But there is no evidence that we were unhappier then than we are now.
We can be more diligent about thinking about what we're consuming and when.
It's really digging down, saying what's going on here? Where does that come from?
We need to think about meat and dairy consumption.
That's not to say that none of us should ever eat meat or should cut all dairy out of our diets, but we have to demand that they are produced sustainably.
We also need to start producing affordable food without expanding any further into the forests. This is indeed quite possible. One of the biggest problems is incredible. We actually waste about 40% of the food that is produced. If we could reduce that food waste, it would go a long, long way to making a more sustainable agricultural system.
It's not just about our current lifestyle, but about the education of our children, on the way nature works.
If we don't act now, the youth of today and the youth of tomorrow are going to look back on this generation with absolute horror. What were you thinking?
We have a moment when we can change our world and make it better. This is that moment.
I do truly believe that together we can create a better future. I might not be here to see it, but if we make the right decisions at this critical moment, we can safeguard our planet's ecosystems, its extraordinary biodiversity, and all its inhabitants. What happens next is up to every one of us.
We're unique as travel agents and tour operators and tourism boards because we have a very strong voice, and if nature goes, we have nothing to sell. So it's vital for us to do what it takes to encourage our clients to tread lightly, to leave the area in a better place than it found it, and to encourage our suppliers to abolish single-use plastics and to use materials that are in keeping with the local environment, that are designed and created by local artisans, by local people, using local materials, and also, you know, to encourage our own clients to eat in restaurants, not to go all inclusive and to overindulge, you know, to buy something in a souvenir shop that's produced locally by a local artist and not with a sticker on the back that says made in China. You know, nothing against China, but everything now these days is so mass produced. But there is an awakening happening. The tourist now is so hyper informed thanks to the internet. 84% of people plan and book their travel online, which means the tourist knows so much more about a hotel than they ever did before, so they have an expectation that's set, and that expectation has to be exceeded. And if you exceed their expectation, then you have a client for life. Next, please.
Over the course of my life, I've encountered some of...
So what we're doing in Ireland, and I won't be too long more, we've introduced 100 white-tailed eagles back into the wild. And they haven't been in Ireland for over 100 years, and it's amazing. And they're breeding chicks. It's going so well for us, but it's not without its flaws, because some of the farmers are poisoning the birds because the birds are coming down and they're taking water to the lands. But that's up to the government to compensate the farmers for that. But it's bringing additional tourists into the area for birding, bird watching, wildlife and conservation, and it's very, very popular. So that's exactly what we're doing currently in Killarney and in Cork. Next, please. And a very short video, if you press play, please.
Garnish Island is well used to visitors, but its latest resident has been causing quite a stir since his birth 16 weeks ago. Birdwatcher Christy Dorgan is among those hoping to catch a glimpse of Eddie, the first sea eagle to fledge in the county in 125 years, and he's in luck.
Oh, that's absolutely fantastic. Oh, this is the white sound. You hear the call? You hear the call? Absolutely fantastic. That is a call of the wild. Absolutely brilliant. That has made my day.
But wary the engine noise and the excited voices below, Eddie isn't keen to budge from his perch. But that's not always the case, say the ferrymen, who've been keeping a close eye on him.
Just fantastic just to see it, to see him at each stage, because, you know, we'd seen him growing at each stage from being in the nest and taking flight. It was just amazing really to see. It's great to see here in Glengarve.
He was the first of a record number of sea eagle chicks to be born this year, but was the last to fly.
They normally fly between 10 and 13 weeks. This one was 14 and a half weeks before he took flight, so he was really kept on tenterhooks, like, is he ever going to actually fly? So yeah, to see him, it's just been magical to see him spreading his wings.
But come October, it'll be time for Eddie to take his leave.
The parents are resident, they'll stay here all winter, but yeah, Eddie has to go off and find his own way in the world, hopefully find a female, settle down somewhere that we hope is safe and free.
Jerry O'Sullivan, RTE News, Bantry Bay.
And you can see by that video just how popular it is to reintroduce wildlife into an area where they were before, because it introduces additional tourists into an area, and it's good for the local tour guides, and the DMCs, and of course the tourism boards as well, and for the environment to do that. So next please. So here's something I'm going to end on in terms of, you know, we do live in a world where people are becoming more like robots and robots are becoming more like people. And there's a growing number of travellers who require digital detox due to the information overload, as I said, in the modern world. So it's important therefore to facilitate those seeking sanctuary. And sanctuary is going to be a very big word that's going to be used, and that's going to be a big player in terms of how we exit from COVID, because a lot of tourists are going to seek sanctuary. So, and there's a lot of areas out there that will provide them with that. But the thing is, if we destroy nature, there is no going back, regardless of the price. You know, there's going to be no sanctuaries to escape to. And if you think about it, as travel agents and tour operators, we have a duty of care to protect Mother Nature at all costs. Therefore, we should encourage not only environmental clients, but hotels, airlines, cruise lines, ground transportation companies, etc., to tread lightly in order to leave the area in a better place than which we found it, for we were merely keepers of the flame. That's all we are. We're just passing the torch on to the next generation. So literally, we have to act today, because if we're not acting today, we'll deny tomorrow's visitor the endless opportunities we have to explore more of this beautiful earth and sense the discovery that's out there. Next, please. So that's it for me. Thanks very, very much. I know it's a little late, but I really appreciate the opportunity once again. Thank you.